Okay, this is live. All right, so I think it's live. Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Cafe Witch Podcast. I am Cabin Black, the host of Cafe Witch Podcast. So I wanted to kind of go over um, some ideas about um, why I'm creating a podcast and what the purpose or what the goals are for Cafe Wish podcast. So the reason why I'm choosing the name of Cafe Wish podcast is, well, I like coffee. Um, I like coffee ever since I was a younger kid. Going to church, having coffee in the morning. It's one it's one of the things that I enjoyed. Um, is just the taste, the robust taste of coffee. As I gotten older, went to different, places, cafes, and whatnot. I had different styles of coffee. My favorite is caramel macchiato. That is my favorite coffee to drink. Anywhere I go to, you know, I prefer. I prefer to have frappuccinos. I like the frozen taste better, or iced coffee. So that's why I chose cafe. I like the vibe, the energy of the cafe. It's cool, it's calm, it's chill. I'm from America, so in America, there's plenty of black-owned cafes. Some I went to in New York, some I went to in DC, some I went to in Baltimore, and it's always this very, very nice. Oh, yes, some I went to Philadelphia as well. It's always a beautiful vibe and nice energy, great people, great, the ambiance is really, really nice. They have couches, they have chairs. So it comes in like when you're going to a cafe or this type of cafe, I should say. Um, Most of the black owned cafes that I went to is like walking into a library mixed with a restaurant. And but it's very I don't want to say Afrocentric because I think that would be too generic to say, but it's a neo soul vibe, a R&B vibe, uh, a blues, jazz, like a lounge feeling. And usually they sell different foods. They sell um, different types of coffee. They have books you can read. They have couches and tables where you can sit down and enjoy hanging out with your friends or whoever you're with. Or if you just want to go solo dolo and you want to go by yourself, cafes are that type of environment that were the ones that I like to go to in this regard. So I like the vibe and the feel and the energy of cafe. Um, Wish that part came from several different components. First, when people pronounce my last name, um, I would say my government last name, they always mispronounce it. It's an uncommon one. So they usually say wish, right? So I was like, oh, okay. And another reason why I chose wish is because I enjoyed growing up watching the black and white TV show called I Dream of Jeannie. I thought that was always a interesting show, funny show, weird show, but I enjoyed watching it with family and whatnot. It was one of the uh, TV shows that I enjoyed growing up. What else? Um, and then also, yeah. So genies, I like the concept of genies and uh, I guess it would be like from Aladdin, the genie. Um, the genie from Aladdin. Um, it's always funny, played by Robin Williams, who's just one of my favorite comedians growing up. Also, the second movie that I've seen of Aladdin was the live action film, which was played by Will Smith. And genies have always been fascinating to me. Um, I know the lore behind genies is a mixed one, um, going back to um, Africa and what they call the Middle East, which it really is to me northeast of Africa or southwest of Asia at best. But nonetheless, um, what else? So yeah, so I enjoyed watching those type of movies, and like I said, I like the lore of genies, making wishes and granting wishes. So I thought that was rubbing the lamp. You know how Disney movie Aladdin goes. Yeah. So, and then the historical, um, I guess, realism of how genies came out to be. Portraying typically, depending on what folklore or lore you're looking at in history, points to quote unquote Black Arabs, Black Africans, Black Asians, you know, being somewhat slaves, right? The genie had shackles on or whatever. And then Aladdin, I guess if I get the story right, at the end of the movie, wished for his third wish was wish for genie to be free. Um, so yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Um, I thought that was very, very interesting. Says look up Project Camelot by Bill Ryan, released in 2012. I don't know what that's about. I may look that up or not. But nonetheless, I personally um, enjoy genies. So, you know, growing up, it's like I said, it was an interesting pastime for me as a kid. So that's why I chose cafe and the term or the title cafe and wish. And then of course podcast. I'm not going to say I'm the most intellectual person, but I do enjoy having conversations. I've always did. I enjoy interviewing people. I enjoy um, getting to know people, talking to people, and whatnot. Yeah. So, uh, and I think I have pretty good conversations when I was doing that, um, for what it is, you know. Um, but so one of the goals of Cafe Wish podcast is right now, if you go to the channel, you're going to see different um, you're going to see different videos that I have uploaded. Okay. Sorry for if my look offends people or not. I don't know. Um, on my day to day, I'm somewhat a frumpy person. Like I get my hair cut and my beard trimmed like once a month. Um, so this is my day to day look. So anyway, um, well, let me say this before I get into this. I guess one of the plans once I go live regularly, I plan to go live at least once a week, just as a check in, and kind of go over more of my thoughts and opinions on Cafe Witch podcast as I'm building this channel and this podcast and trying to cultivate somewhat of a community of people who are like-minded and who are free thinkers and who enjoy listening to content that is some would suggest countercultural, but I'm going to be having different type of interviews and discussions anyway. So, but it's primarily going to be focused around religion, philosophy, LGBTQIA plus. Um, by the way, happy Pride. Living each day one queer day at a time. Uh, and happy Pride Month for everyone who's celebrating and enjoying the festivals and festivities and the events that are occurring this month around the world globally. We are queer, we are here, and we are going anywhere. We aren't going anywhere. So, anyway, um, the point of me talking about the discussions. Okay, so I'm gonna have a segment for interviews and discussions. I'm gonna have another segment to go over news, current events, things of that nature, things that I want to talk about and address. And I'm gonna do it in my own way. I'm gonna do everything in stages and phases. I'm not gonna put everything out there all at once, meaning each segment. So the first segment I'm working with, or the first stage and phase I'm working with, is just the interviews and discussions. And then now just doing weekly lives so I can allow the audience, allow you guys to see a little bit of my transparency and authenticity, I guess. Hopefully, you can see me in a different light and different perspective, other than just if you are watching the um, the videos, you'll get a different perspective of me, and also allow you to engage with me um, as I do these lives. Um, as currently right now, let me see. There's maybe one person watching, which is fine. It's all about creating a brand and building a community behind that brand. And it's done in stages and phases, and I'm trying to do the best that I can to start this thing up, and I'm having fun while doing it. So that's one of the beautiful things about having podcast in this style and fashion on YouTube is that you can go at your pace, you can create it, you can do, whatever you want. There's a lot of rules and restrictions, right? But I try to be as professional, or try to be professional as possible, while I'm doing lives or uploading content. So let me get to the content itself. So if you look at Cafe Wish Podcast, I have uploaded test promotional vid. I uploaded that back in December of last year. And then 13 days ago, I have uploaded my first video, which is Colorism Interview Part 1. Colorism Interview Part 1 through 3. It's just covering my thoughts and opinions about colorism, and I'm conducting a discussion, and I'm working with someone to kind of tease out my questions and my thoughts once again on colorism, because it's a hot topic right now, and I think it always has been. So if you check those out and you liked the discussion, then I encourage you to continue watching. I plan to have more parts come out for colorism, more interviews to edit and bring out. So, like I said, if you enjoy listening to this type of content and getting different people's perspectives on things, I think that's great. Okay, so the next videos I have up is a Black Like Me. A Black Like Me is to cover pretty much my fundamental beliefs and what I know about history and these type of facts concerning genetics, race, ethnicity, nationality, and whatnot. I hold to the theory that we all came out of the motherland of Africa over 100,000 years ago, and we all come from a common family, and we went our not separate ways. That sounds kind of negative. We went and explored and ventured out and expanded, right? And we took our culture with us. We took our ideals with us, our ideas, what made us us at that time, over 100,000 years ago, once again. And we went out of Africa to Australia by boat. We also went up northeast to what we call the Middle East, all the way down to India. And we took a boat from eastern part of Africa to Malaysia. And from there, we went to Nepal, China. From there, we took boats from Malaysia to the Philippines. And then from Australia, they took a boat from Australia to the Philippines, and then Japan. And then we went to western part of South America, and then North America. We also went from the Phoenicians, who are Africans, Black people, went from northeast of Africa, where Egypt is, and went up around to Europe. So went up through the Middle East to Europe and circled back around to Morocco, and then down to West Africa. We also went from South Africa all the way up to West Africa, to Northwest Africa, to Morocco. So it was in the migrations were very circular. And over time, our genetics blossomed, if you will. Our genetics grew. Um, and we didn't really change all that much. Um, but we did have changes. Evolution is changes over time. We have had changes in our genetics based upon the food that we ate, the location that we were, um, uh, depending on what type of weather. Yes, that all has an impact, but it's not to the degree where I like to say where certain uh, scientists and philosophers like to make a point and say, oh, you know, went to Asia and we got light, bright, almost white. Nah, that's not what happened. Um, or we went to Europe and we got white. That's not what happened. At least that's not the evidence that I have found. Um, but in my studies, let me just say this really quickly so people can understand a little bit different or something about differently about me is that I graduated from college with a bachelor's in religion and philosophy, and I plan on continuing my education. So hence I'm doing these different studies, um, and one of my studies is on what I'm talking about right now, and understanding that so far what I've learned and what I'm learning in my research is that there are two types of genetics holistically. Um, the biggest genetic gene pool is what I like to call the Negro Black gene pool, which is Black people. Um, Not in the sense of African Black, because once again, we left out of the motherland and we migrated all the way around the world. So indigenous people are Black typically, and they're a variation of Black. So yes, we all started in one place, but we have moved. And once again, the land, the space, and the time, the food, and the environment and the atmosphere that we were in did have an impact. Nature and nurture, right? It impacts our genetics. Over time, we had some changes, but it wasn't modifications to the point where we became totally radically different genetics. We just enriched our genetics and became variations of the same. Um, Everyone knows, and you can watch any historical or read any historical literature, journals, or books on this. So white people typically come from two different locations. Um, they come from either what we call the Middle East part, which where Black people come from as well. But what you find that white people who come from the Middle East and white people come from Europe, they have the Neanderthal genetics, um, which is a totally different gene pool altogether. That's why they have their own separate gene pool. Now, some people may say, well, Asians have Neanderthal as well. Well, there's a reason for that. A lot of people who are mulatto are going to have Neanderthal genetics, right? I consider Asians to be, well, the light, bright, almost white ones. I consider uh, them in my research um, to be mulatto. Mulatto is a mixture between Black and white. So there's different variations of Black, and there's somewhat different, not a lot of variations of white, but genetically, not in racial terms. So once again, I'm using Black and white, but not in racial terms. I'm using it in more of a genetic term. So if you can follow along, cool. If not, that's okay as well. Hopefully you'll get my interpretation or get my opinion as if you continue watching. And like I said, if you enjoy this type of material, if you're a free thinker, um, and you like to hear other people's perspectives and opinions on these topics that I'm bringing out, then great. Once again, there's two different genetics. So in Africa, there are mulattoes as well. Some of them have Neanderthal as well, but it's not on a grand scale, right? Um, so someone may say, well, how did the Asians get lighter? Like what? Well, there's a reason for that. There's something that is called the transatlantic slave trade. There's something called the trans-Saharan slave trade, and there's something called the Silk Road. Now, the Silk Road is a pathway that usually deal with commerce going from the motherland to China, right? Some parts of Europe, some parts of what we call the Middle East, but always, going up to China. Now, it's important to know that everyone has been enslaved by white Europeans. Um, Asia has been enslaved by white Europeans. Africa has been enslaved by white Europeans. Australia has been enslaved by white Europeans. South Americans were enslaved by white Europeans, and North America has been enslaved by white Europeans. There's no place where white Europeans have not enslaved the indigenous people who are Black. So anytime you mix their genetics with Black genetics, well, some of the population are going to look somewhat different or differently. And they created a caste system or an apartheid system or a type of Jim Crow, uh, so to speak, during the time of colonization. So you had the mulatto ones, which was the quote unquote mixed ones, the lights, some were lighter, not always, but some were lighter. And because of that granted them either freedom or that from slavery, or if they were slaves, it granted them a higher privilege in society, even though they may quote unquote have been slave because their fraternal parent, or in some cases maternal mother, um, parent, or fraternal parent, whatever, um, was quote unquote white European. So um, and because of that, how white Europeans at that time set up the system meaning as of how other people related to one another. If you were lighter, you had the upper hand in society. You had more leverage than someone who was darker. Um, Once again, so if we fast forward to today, we still see that. We still see um, in America, we call that the paper bag test. So during the 1960s, really quickly, during the 1960s, um, and before and prior to, they would use a paper bag. And if a paper bag was different colors, so there was a certain type of color, certain paper bags were this color and some paper bags were this color. If you were darker than these colors, if you were darker than these colors, um, then you were considered low class. If you were lighter or light as these colors or lighter than these colors, then you were considered higher class, right? Um, During Jim Crow, the apartheid of America. And so it is true back then, from colonization to um, the early 20th century, leading to the civil rights movement, and even till now. We still see, they're called vestiges. We still see vestiges of slavery, vestiges of colonization, vestiges of apartheid and Jim Crow. In certain places in the world, there's still apartheid going on, right? Um, and Asia is no different. Africa is no different. Europe is no different. South America, Australia, North America is no different. There are still these colorisms, if you will, as I addressed in the first three videos, as I talked previously about. Colorism is very much something that is real and exists in our communities, regardless of how you identify socially, your social your social geopolitical views, your color politics. Someone may have a color politics. People have social geopolitics. Some people have social economic politics. Some people just have identity politics. Um, some people partake in Eurasianism, white Euro Eurasianism. Some people partake in black Euro Eurasianism. Some people take part of uh, the Orientalism, which is the white version of that. Some people care, take part or partake in the black Orientalism. A lot of all these isms because of the vestiges of slavery, and it shows up in real time in our real society. Like not too long ago, speaking of current events and news, China released a black doll that people were buying, and they call them stress relievers. And from what was said, is that these black dolls, the reason why they were that color is because they didn't want to make them quote unquote white or lighter than this, because if they were lighter than this, they viewed them as human or too human. So the darker they were, darker than this, they viewed them as less human, which goes back to colonization, what goes back to the 20th century, Eurasianism, white Eurasianism, what goes back into all these apartheid systems that come from slavery. Because everybody wants to point at black people who they consider black politically, working in their color politics from Africa from the last 500 years or so. That's who they determine who black is. If you're Africa, or if you're from there, or you have ancestry from there within the last 500 years due to colonization, then they consider you black. They meaning white people. Those are their rules, right? I don't hold to those rules. And apparently nations around the world adhere to those rules, but I don't. I'm going by who you genetically are. And once again, I go by out of the motherland theory. And I go by my own research and what I'm finding here, which is coming out to be true the more I research. So going back to the black doll, there was a black doll test also in the States that was conducted twice, from what I understand. The first test was conducted, I think, back in the 1980s or late 1970s. And there was a recent test that was done during, I believe, the 2010s, or the 20 teens, if I'm correct on those dates. So what the researchers and the facilitators did, they got a group of young children, have to be between like the ages of 5 through 10 maybe, and they asked them a series of questions. They asked them questions about dolls and what they thought about dolls, and then they showed 2 different types of dolls. One doll that was in the phenotype arena of what a white Euro may look like, and the other doll was in the phenotype of what a caricature of what a quote unquote black person would look like. And the findings with that is that the children all responded in both tests, doll tests. It's called the doll test. You can look it up on YouTube and you'll find it, or any article online, or just go to Google and type it in. Nonetheless, the findings were that both quote unquote white children and quote unquote black children, and all in between, racially. Identified the white doll to be the prettier doll, the more intelligent doll, the good doll. And the black doll was considered the ugly doll. The bad doll, the less intelligent doll. And both tests are very fascinating because it shows that children are even imparted these things. Now, nature and nurture is a real thing. And how you're nurtured can affect your nature over time. So there could be a mixture. And once again, I don't have the exact results per se. I'm going over what was reported and what I saw. But as far as the verbatim, having the whole spreadsheet of the answers or the findings that the scientists and the facilitators were able to gather, I haven't saw that yet. But it doesn't take away from the point that a child, in my opinion, should not be able to gather that type of information, and they only been on this planet like 5 to 10 years. Like that's a problem. I think that's a big, huge opportunity to address, and it needs to be addressed. But even going back to the point of how colorism, once again, the 3 videos I posted, and I have more videos to show as well for my interviews and discussions on colorism. And also a Black like me, right? So there are Black Asians, there are Black Africans, Black Australians, Black Europeans, Black South Americans, Black North Americans. There are Black Indigenous people on the face of the planet in all of these continents, right? Not Black in a sense of racial identity. That's racial politics. I'm talking about genetically, talking about variations of the same, going back to the out of the motherland theory and going into how we show up in the world and our, not just in our phenotypes, but just in our, and also in our behaviors and how we live our lives. And looking at our genetics, because there, I don't want to dive into the genetic part too much because I'm still building that research, and I don't want to have to come back and correct something that I have to say. But I have more to say about that. So as I'm finding more, I will bring it out more. I only want to reveal things or communicate things that I'm confident about verbatim, right? If things I'm discovering, I don't mind talking about them, but I want to go deep until I flush it out and get more. That's just my personality, I guess, and how I want to do things. And then another set of videos I have here is a gay like me. A gay like thee. A gay like thee is going over experiences that the LGBTQIA plus live through and have lived through in Southeast Asia and in America so far, just based upon these interviews that I'm doing. So these brave discussions that I'm having with these very talented people who I'm interviewing and who I'm privileged to interview, they are giving me their honest opinions and thoughts and ideas on not just colorism, not just a Black like me, but also a gay like thee, and they are willing to give their in a churchy way their testimony, and just in a secular way, they are willing to just to give an account of their experiences that they have lived through. and I'm very fortunate to be able to gather that information. Um, and then I have recently uploaded um, a continuation of A Black Like Me through Malay Lens. So that was in Malaysia. And I recently uploaded Faith, Fear, and Frontier through American Lens. So that is going into a little bit of transparency about me, um, about what I think of faith and how I see faith. And I don't particularly have a religion, from my opinion. Someone may say you do have a religion, because we all see religion differently, and language is important, and definitions to languages are important. Um, but what I believe that I live with and live through in a spiritual sense, I just see it spiritually. I don't see it as a religion. I do have rituals that I do, like I meditate, I pray, um, I fast. Um, I guess there would be religious things, which I would just call rituals, but I'm not religious in a sense of where I'm arresting people or forcing someone uh, to live a certain way. I just I take the Apostle Paul approach, which is just to persuade, have conversations with people, debate, persuade, not in debate in like a arguing, social arguing way. Even though I do have points that I argue, it's not in this exchange of what people think of a heated, raw debate, of how people get into arguments like in real time on an everyday level, right? Not like that. I typically like to have a calm, cool, collective approach and just have a conversation. And in my interviews and my discussions, and if I do have a debate, it will be on that. It will be in that tone. It wouldn't be me yelling at you, you yelling at me. It wouldn't be me. No, I can play the dozens, right? I can play, I can, if you want to play the Jones, we can Joan each other, but um, that's not my go-to. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to really just persuade and get the information out and exchange ideas. So that's my goal there. What else? I think that's it so far. Um, as the more comfortable I get with building this podcast and fashioning this brand, the more comfortable I get, I believe that the audience will enjoy it more. Um, like practice makes perfect, right? Um, so um, once again, if I have your buy-in already, and you enjoy hearing other people's perspectives, and have a free mind, free thinker, and whether you're religious or not, spiritual or not, if you're atheist, if you black, white, purple, green, whatever, however you identify, um, I encourage you to continue watching, continue listening, and engage in the comments. I encourage you to like, share, subscribe on the podcast on this channel, Cafe Wish Podcast, CWP. And I encourage you to want to participate. If you want to participate and have a discussion with me, you're fully um, green lighted to do that. So just reach out to me through my platform here, and through the comments or whatnot, and I'll get back to you. Or comment on one of the videos, and I'll get back to you. Let's keep it, that simple, right? So that's it for now. Um, it's early in the morning here where I'm at, so in a secret location, and I'm going to get something to eat. I'm going to get some breakfast. So have a good morning, have a good afternoon, have a good evening. And we always remember, leaving on a good note, always remember to be smart, be happy, be healthy. Take care, guys.